Hello friends, it's ADHD dude back with another video, and I apologize for not posting much recently. I've been busy and dying because of math, because math is kicking my butt. But today's video we're going to be talking about how to remember things, because with ADHD it can be very difficult to remember things. And so I'm going to use some examples from my sophomore year of high school when I was in Chem 1, because we had to remember a bunch of polyatomic ions, and I'm going to show you how I remembered some of them, because honestly I came up with some really strange ways, or at least to me they're really strange. Other people would look at me and be like, what the heck? Whenever I would tell them my ways of remembering things. And I did this for each of the polyatomic ions that we had to memorize, because we had to do these quizzes where if one person is either below a B or below a C, if one person in any of the Chem 1 classes got below that, everyone had to retake it, which is good for the smart people who knew their crap, because that would boost their grade with like the 10-point grades that are just constantly being like 100%. It's just bumping their grade up. For the people who didn't remember things, it just kind of was slowly tanking their grade, which was honestly kind of dumb. I'm kind of glad that I'm out of high school. I really did not like chemistry. I was not good at it. But let's get into some examples of some weird ways I remembered things. So we're going to start with the one that's probably the dumbest that people smacked their head the most about whenever I would tell them it's hydroxide. And the way I remembered it was, oh look, it's hydroxide. I know it's lame. It's not as clever as some of those other ones are really weird, like how did you notice this? And honestly, I'm just kind of a child. It'd be like that sometimes. And for cyanide, it's CN negative, so I'd be like, oh, it's something you'd see like CNN, so like CN. Heh, cyanide poisoning. Murder. That's probably something you'd see on CNN. CNN's a news thing, right? I'm about 5% sure on this. Okay, the next one is acetate, which I think this one kind of confused people the most on how the heck I figured this out and how I noticed it, because as you can see, acetate has 7 letters. And for acetate, if you take all of the subscripts of each thing, it adds up to 7, because 2 plus 3 plus 2 is 7, so acetate is C2H3O2. It was very strange. I got a lot of weird looks in high school for that one. Also, I don't have a sticky note for this one, but like perchlorate is ClO4 negative, and I remember that because it was like perchlorate, so it's P-E-R-C-H, and a 4 looked like a perch. I came up with some really dumb ways to remember things. Like this one, which people also would smack their head at me about. But this one, for permanganate, as you can see, I underlined man and ate. That's because the way I'd remember it was the man ate 4 oranges. Permanganate, MnO4. The man ate 4 oranges. I'm a child. It'd be like that sometimes. I came up with really weird things. This is another thing that I noticed was for nitrate and nitrite, because as you can see, nitrate has 3 different vowels. It has an I, an A, and an E. And then nitrite only has 2, which is an I and an E. And so nitrite, with its 2 different vowels, is NO2, whereas nitrite, with its 3 vowels, is NO3. Very strange. I know people judged me a lot, gave me a lot of weird looks, because I did this for every single polyatomic ion. I can't remember a lot of them, to be honest, because, again, that was sophomore year of high school. That was like 3 years ago, 4 years ago. That was so long ago, and I was really bad at chemistry. These saved my life, noticing like little things and little patterns within words to help me remember them. For dates, I honestly am really bad at remembering dates. It can be very difficult for me because it's too many numbers. I'm bad with numbers. I'm bad at math. It's just a rough time. I always try to come up with some sort of weird sentence to go along with it, like the whole thing of like Christopher Columbus sailed the ocean blue in 1492. That sort of thing that a lot of people hear and know. That's the sort of thing I try to come up with to help me be able to remember all of these different dates. And honestly, for names, I try to just remember weird things like, honestly, I remember we learned about Bacon's Rebellion in U.S. history like a couple months back. I don't remember. It was this semester though. And honestly, all I can tell you is that it was a slave rebellion, but I can remember that's Bacon's Rebellion, because honestly, the name Bacon, that's like a great name. That's a quality name right there. Like, that's a great name. But honestly, I'm just really bad at history. I'm really bad about remembering names. So half the time I BS it and I hope for the best. But for stuff like when you're reading a book and you have to like take a quiz on it, whether it's an AR test or just a quiz for your English class, I normally try to like kind of read it out loud under my breath, and I read it a couple of times just so that I can kind of like get more into my brain, because my brain likes to remember some details, but not the ones that usually end up being important. But I never really had an issue with AR tests except for when I didn't actually read the book. Like, don't come at me for this, but Pride and Prejudice was a bad book. That's my opinion. I hated that book. I also did not like Count of Monte Cristo, or The Great Gatsby, or The Picture of Dorian Gray. And another concept of remembering things is remembering when you have appointments and such, which can be very difficult, I know. But what I do personally is, if you have a bullet journal or some sort of journal that you use a lot, or even a planner. Honestly, if you have a planner, you probably just write it in there. But I'm going to show you something in my bullet journal real quick, so give me a hot second. So, in my bullet journal, I have a page, if I can't find it, because I have managed to lose it, but that's fine. It happens. But I have a page specifically dedicated to my upcoming appointments, because this way I can write them down. But as you can see, I have boxes. If you've seen my bullet journal videos, you've seen this multiple times. But boxes where I can put a sticky note, write the date of the appointment on it, stick it in the appropriate box, like eye doctor, psychiatrist. That's not psychologist, that's a psychiatrist. That's who I go to. And a dentist. Other appointments that you have, whether it's like gynecologist or any of that jazz, you can just put them down and then you can easily remove them. If you don't have one coming up, you can write none underneath. That way when you take the sticky note off, it doesn't get in the way. Okay, on the topic of still remembering things, because that's what this entire video is about. Remembering names. That's difficult. I'm really bad with remembering names. Fun fact, 6th grade year, I asked this girl what her name was so many times that she refused to tell me anymore. That was the time, because I still did not know her name, and I kept having to ask her friends instead. Pretty sure they all hated me. I know the person who I asked her name a lot hates me. If she's watching this, you probably don't know who you are. So, with remembering names, it can be really hard unless I have something to associate them with. Like, for marching band this year, I remembered a bunch of color guard people's names. Actually, I remembered all the color guard people's names eventually, because I associated them with color guard. If I knew them from a class, I'd probably forget their name a lot. I remember my partner's name because they're my partner. I hope I would remember their name, otherwise that'd just be really tragic. And I have a lot of problems with remembering names because at this point in the semester, in my creative writing 204 class, which is the intermediate narrative writing class I'm in, most people know each other's names by now, but I know maybe 5 of like almost 20. Because I'm really bad at names. I could eventually figure out some people's, but for others it's like I have no idea, which is why last semester one of my CW professor for beginner, like introductory narrative writing, would start each day by being like, okay, so-and-so, who's that? And then once he said that person's name, he'd be like, okay, who's that? So everyone could learn each other's names. And that was great for me because I'm bad with names. So, remembering names, it's easier if you have something to associate them with, whether it be like marching band, softball, baseball, football, math class. Like, I remember this girl's name, I can't pronounce it for the life of me. I'm not even gonna say it because I'll probably butcher it. But I remember her name because she's in my math class, and we have each other on Snapchat, and she's kind of saved my butt a couple times. But honestly, remembering things for me all comes down to coming up with these strange kind of inventive ways to remember it. Like with all my chemistry crap, because honestly, this didn't make sense to a whole lot of people, but it helped me to remember. So honestly, there is no one tried and true method of remembering things. It's all about what works for you. Try a bunch of things and figure out what works, because what works for me might not work for you, and what works for you might not work for me. Everybody is different. So in the end, it's all a bunch of trial and error to figure out what works best for you and how your brain functions, because brains are difficult. They are difficult. They're butts. It be like that. I hate it sometimes. because honestly, life would be so much easier if I could just remember everything, but honestly, I can forget what I was talking about while I'm talking about it. Or I'll be telling a story and I'll go off on a tangent, I'll be like, what was my original point? I had a point. But eventually I either get back to it or I don't, but in that sort of situation it doesn't really matter. But again, everyone is different, so you just gotta find out what works for you. And I hope that you guys all find that either soon or you already have, but I know you will get there because everyone learns about themselves as they grow up and it just happens. So that is all I have for this video. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day and I will see you next time.